So this week we're going to start talking about parabolas, but before we do that, we're going to spend another week reviewing factoring from last week. And factoring is something, factors are things that multiply together to give me a product. So if I talk about the factors of a number, if I say what are the factors of, let's say 12, well, what numbers multiply to give me 12? I could say 12 times 1, I could say 4 times 3, or I could say 6 times 2. So that means 12 has a total of 6 factors. Those are all the ways we can multiply to get 12, 3 sets of factors. So when I ask you to factor something, I'm asking you to put it back into its product form, right? So I'm actually asking you to divide. You're dividing backwards and telling me what did I multiply to get that number. So opposite of multiplication is division. So to look at problem 1, I told you last week that for this type of factoring question, we're always going to put 2 parentheses. We're going to look at the sign here. We're going to fill in x and x. If that sign is positive, we look at the first sign to tell us what they are. So they're both positives. And then we're going to look at the 8, and we're going to write out its factors. So 8 is 8 times 1, or 4 times 2. Well, we want the 2 factors that add up to 6. And if you notice, those are 4 and 2. So the factors of x squared plus 6x plus 8 are x plus 4 and x plus 2. Those are both independent factors, right? So this is a factor and this is a factor. Just like 4 and 3 are factors of 12, x plus 4 and x plus 2 are factors of x squared plus 6x plus 8. All right, let's try example number 2. So again, this is like a number here. We're just trying to figure out how did we get that number. So we're going to start with x and x. Now we have a minus at the end, and if there's a minus, we get to put a plus and a minus. And now we're going to write out the factors of 12. Well, we already know them. They're right up above. So I want the factors of 12 that subtract to give me negative 4. Well, what are they? If you notice, 6 and 2 subtract to give me 4. But I want negative 4. So I'm going to put 6 here on the negative and 2 on the positive. So 6 times 2 gives me negative 12. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. And negative 6 plus 2 leaves me with negative 4. Factoring. Factor, factor. Super important where you put the sign, because if I have those signs switched around, it's going to change my product. Okay. All right, let's go on to the third one. This example is similar to the one we just did. So if we look at x and x, start, we know that it's plus and minus. And then we want the factors of 40. So 40 is 40 times 1, 20 times 2. So I'm just going down. What does 3 go into 40? 3 does not go into 40, but 4 does. So it's going to be 4 times what? 10. Does 5 go into 40? Yeah, 5 times 8. And does 6 go into 40? 7 go into 40? No. Right? So those are all the factors of 40. As soon as you go down, as soon as you get all the way up to the point where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we tried 6 and 7, now we're at 8, we've gotten all the factors. So we want the factors that subtract to give me negative 3. So 8 and 5 subtract to give me negative 3. So we're going to put negative 8 and positive 3. Because you want more negative, and that's because this number here is negative. If that had been positive, we would have put the 8 on the positive. Okay, problem number 4. I hope you're practicing these on your own. Again, watching me do the examples is instruction, and instruction is only 10% of learning, right? So you can watch somebody do something all day long, but that's just the instructions. If you ever want to learn something, you have to practice. It's the only way we learn things. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's true. I wish I could learn Spanish just by listening to it. If I could just listen to people speak Spanish, I should know Spanish by now, but I don't, because I've been listening to Spanish for over 40 years. I have to practice it. So again, fill in x and x, put in plus and plus, because we're adding 2 positives. And I want the factors of 45 that add up to 14. Well, the easiest factors of 45 that I remember are 9 times 5. And 9 and 5 happen to add up to 14, so I got lucky, 9 and 5. The only other two factors of 45 are 45 and 1. And I knew that those weren't going to be it because 45 and 1 add up to 46, and that number was not large enough. Right? So those are the factors. I do want to tell you that not everything factors. Sometimes you could get something that you go through all these steps and you cannot factor it. So when that happens, we say not factorable, or we also say prime. Let's try the next problem. So if we look here again, we're going to fill in our x's. We are factoring using a positive and a negative. Now we want the factors of 36 that subtract to give me 9. So this one I'm probably going to have to write out. So I know 9 times 4 is 36. I also know that 6 times 6 is 36. Neither of those subtract to give me 9. So I better look for another set of factors. What else fits into 36? 18 times 2 is 36. That one doesn't work. There's one more. What is it? Anybody know? 12 times 3. Right, that's it right there, 12 times 3. Because 12 and 3 subtract to give me 9. There's some other tricks that I can teach you, but it just takes some practice. One way you could have thought about it is you want two numbers that multiply to give you 36 that have a difference of only 9. So you could have started with 1, and if you multiply times 1 and 10 are 9 units apart, but 1 times 10 is not 36. If you move on to 2, you could have said 2 times 11. 2 and 11 subtract to give me 9, but they don't multiply to give me 36. If you go to 3, 3 times 12, they also have a difference of 9, and they multiply to give you 36. So those would be the two factors. That's another way you could get them. All right, number 6. Start with x. Factors of 12 that add up to 7. Oh, it's an easy one. 4 and 3. Factors of x squared plus 7x plus 12 are x plus 4 and x plus 3. And then our last two problems on the review from last week. Factors of 5 that add up to negative 6. We're adding up two negatives here because this is positive, tells me I'm adding, and I'm adding up to get negative 6. And the factors of 5 are 5 and 1. Those add up to negative 6. And our last example is factors of 20. So I'm going to write them out here. I have 1 times 20. I have 2 times 10. And I already noticed that the 2 and the 10 add up to 12. So it's x plus 10 times x plus 2. So I told you that not everything factors, so I'm going to show you one that doesn't. So if I gave you an example like this and I said x squared plus 5x plus 8. Looks pretty friendly, so I'm going to try to factor it. I'm going to look for the factors of 8, which are 4 and 2 and 8 and 1. And they have to add up to 5, because that's the only way it can work. This is adding, and they have to add up to 5. Well, 8 and 1 add up to 9, and 4 and 2 add up to 6. So this does not factor, and we would say it is prime. And prime means it only has itself and 1 as a factor. So I don't want you going down and saying that everything is prime, but every now and then you will find something that cannot be factored. And that means we'll have to use another method for solving it if it's a quadratic equation, or describing the parabola, because this is parabolic when we graph it. That's what we're going to look at in the next part of the lesson.